society, we like the back rows. However, I will encourage everybody if you could draw a little closer so that I'm not speaking to seats.
Hello? Hello, good morning. Sorry, but at the moment we're experiencing a few technical difficulties, but we're going to start around 9:30, so please bear with us. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning, distinguished guests. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, partners. I'm seeing a lot of smiling faces in the room, some retailers, some distributors, some manufacturers, some small businesses. It's really heartening to have you here this morning. Online as well, I understand that the viewership is increasing. Apologies again for the late start. We did have one or two technical difficulties, and on a Friday for you to be in person here so early, I take it that this topic of metrology is one that is of keen interest to you. The workshop is on implementing the new Metrology Act that will be proclaimed soon. My name is Hayden Rind. I am the director of the Barbados National Standards Institution, commonly known as BNSI. And I will introduce the panelists that you have. To my immediate right is Margaret Campbell-Leslie. Margaret is the Deputy Director of the Department of Commerce and Consumer Affairs, commonly known as the DCCA. And they play a critical role in metrology in that the legal metrology aspect is enforced currently by the DCCA. Margaret will tell you more about that. And to her right is Mr. Damien Prescott. Damien is a key person in the metrology system in Barbados, sometimes flying the flag by himself. It is a discipline in which people are now learning about. We're building capacity, but Damien is the metrologist as a technical officer at the BNSI. And this morning we will give you just an overview. We will introduce you to the Metrology Act. What is it about? Why is it important? And we will attempt to make what could be a very technical subject very interesting. So we will dumb it down a little bit. We will have participation, not just from the persons in the room, but online. Please feel free. This is a type of session where you get to engage. So it is not just a series of lectures and remarks coming from the front. This one is one in which we want you to be comfortable. We want you to be comfortable with measurement and understanding the importance of accurate measurements, not just in your organization, but for Barbados. And we are trying to build a culture of quality at the BNSI in which measurement and metrology plays a critical role. It's really a pillar of what we call the quality infrastructure. And you'll hear a little bit more about that as well. So I especially acknowledge our partners from government ministries, agencies, and the private sector. They're regional and international organizations that we partner with as BNSI to make this a reality. And the many consumers, the many entrepreneurs, technical experts who have joined us in person and online this morning, I thank you. So I'll start. This event, as I said, is not just a procedural step in proclaiming the act. It is a milestone in strengthening Barbados's national quality infrastructure. Our interconnected system of standards, metrology, accreditation, conformity assessment, that's what makes a quality infrastructure, all right? Morning, sir. Welcome. Nice to see you. So the framework underpins how we trade. It underpins how we go about protecting consumers, and more importantly, how we build trust both domestically and internationally. So with the Barbados Metrology Act 2025, we're modernizing our entire approach to measurement. It establishes the international system of units. Everyone knows of the SI units. So in the room, give me one SI unit. Kilograms. Oh, there, the scientists are talking about moles, right? And that's not moles that bury into the ground. So I am in a room with some technical experts, moles. Usually that's not one of the first examples, but thumbs up. One more. Give me one more SI unit, which is internationally recognized. SI unit. So we have moles, we have centimeters. Go for it. Meters, but you're staying on length. Come to another measurand. Yes, which is weight. What about volume? What's the SI unit for volume? Okay, so it's often liters, right? Now, are y'all familiar with the imperial? So the word imperial means different things to different people, but our reality, and this is a grassroots workshop, okay? So our reality is that we've been steeped traditionally and historically in an imperial system. You all know this? A lot of what we've learned, a lot of our systems have come off our imperial kind of guidance. So if I stand up and someone were to guess my height, what's the first thing you would say? Anyone? Somebody says 6 feet. You're close. 5'10". That's my friend that tried to make me shorter than I am. But when I was, firm, I was 6'2". But I am familiar with that. When I say 6'2", you all have a concept of that. Now, tell me how tall I am in meters without going on your phone and doing you know what I mean? It's difficult. Why? Because we've been steeped in feet versus meters. When it comes to weight, what do we all know? We know pounds. We're familiar with pounds. Good? So here now, to be internationally competitive, there's this SI unit of measurement which we have to become familiar with. If not, we get left behind. It's as simple as that, The rest of the world, when it comes to metrology, when it comes to making sure that our systems are accurate, when it comes to calibration, in that sphere, they're dealing with kilograms and liters and so on. Yeah? So if we operate as a small country and we don't understand or appreciate how important that is, we get left far, far, far behind. Thank you for guessing my height and participating there. That was good. Now, why does this matter to all of you in the room? Why does this really matter to even just the public? Why does this matter? Now, accurate measurement isn't just a technical footnote. It's the foundation of commerce. It is the foundation of industry and ultimately the foundation of public confidence. How many of you have phones? Everybody in the room, right? You get a bill, postpaid or prepaid. Either way, you're paying money for your usage. That usage is measured by the utility in terms of what? Time. Time that you spent with local calls, regional calls, and international calls. So guess what? Your bill is directly related to a measurement. Am I right? Would you be confident to know that when you get billed, they've measured your time and your usage of your phone accurately? Is that important to you? So measurement isn't just this, thing for the scientists. It affects all of us every day. We started this workshop 9:30. People were in the room from 9 o'clock. Thank you. But you had to measure even the traffic coming here. You had to gauge for time so you can come and participate. Measurement is very important. Now, in this workshop, we will walk you through the key provisions of this act that really is setting up Barbados to be able to measure accurately so that trust is built not just domestically in Barbados, but Barbados is seen as a trading partner which is trustworthy. It is very important. Now, later on in the session, we would explain your rights and your obligations as a business. If you're a consumer, which we all are, you would get to hear, so what are my obligations as a consumer? You know, what are my rights as far as the Act is concerned as a consumer? And we will have Margaret give a little bit about, from the regulatory side, you know, what's happening. Are there fees and fines if we don't get it right? What does getting it right look like for businesses? If you're a vendor, and I know I have Barvin in the room, what does that look like for us? You know, how do we fit in terms of getting our measurements right for vending? Yeah? Now, we see the Act as not just a set of rules, because it's not, it's really a partnership which is being handed down. We're collaborating with all of you, so it's a collaborative framework. Today's agenda will include, like how I'm speaking now, very open panel discussions. Again, open, so whether in the room or online, this is our time to have a discussion. And ultimately, we will make that critical link between accurate measurements and how do you, the consumers, get protected. Now, from a welcoming standpoint, again, I thank you for coming. And I believe strongly that in this series of workshops that we're having, this is the second one like this in recent times, in 2 weeks. So we had one last week, Friday, this Friday. The month of October, we will continue to engage. Some of the engagements will be directly in industry, you know, in different sectors, really bringing all of the sectors to an awareness of their role in the Metrology Act. But together, and I want you to own this with me, together we are going to chart a path for a fairer, more competitive economy in Barbados, and one that is grounded in trust and quality. So I want you to just think about that for the entire morning. How do we prove that trade is fair? And I would like you in the room, just raise your hand if you've ever had a business transaction that you thought was not fair. I will raise mine first. And if you're not raising your hand, it means that you just don't know. Right? Because at some stage as consumers, as we're engaging with business, you know, we say, well, either I didn't get enough, or the quality of what I got isn't right, or I got too much. Hello? You know? Or that's not a problem. Well, it would be if you're on the business side of things, you know? Because guess what? Sometimes it's not always the consumer, and I'm using Beijing now, getting robbed, you know. Sometimes if you have the wrong systems or you're making errors with your business, you're giving away things. You're not charging properly. You're not charging enough, you know? So it's both ways. It's both ways. So this morning, the purpose really of today's workshop I spoke about, but it's really an important milestone in our journey to fully operationalize the Barbados Metrology Act. If you haven't had a copy, I know many of you already have seen the final draft, which is going to be proclaimed, but we have your registration details. We can always make the act available to you, okay, if you haven't seen it, so that you can see it and go through it and be like, you know, familiar and own it. Our aim is not to simply comply with legislation, but is really to build a strong culture. You know, I've been at BNSI a few years, and my hope is to have a culture that understands quality. Not just a culture that is looking for the easiest route. And we call it in Barbados a shortcut culture, you know. if I have an opportunity in my business to make sure that the quality of my product or the quality of my service is excellent, I will be in business a long time. If you look around Barbados, the businesses that have queues of people and people waiting for the service is because somewhere they perceive that they're getting quality for a good price too, you know? So it's a competitive business. You could have the best intentions in the world, but from the time people realize that your quality is not consistent, you'll be very quickly out of business. True? So this thing about metrology, and I would invite you to be honest with me in the room. How many of you at first thought that it has something to do with the weather? Be honest. 1, 2, 3, 4. Because there is the word meteorology, right? Which is more common. Meteorology, which is the science of the weather and so on. But this fellow that we're discussing this morning for a few hours is metrology. metrology. Close word, totally different meaning. And it literally means the science of measurement. Yeah? So thank you for your honesty. And if we just implement and proclaim a metrology bill, I guarantee you, a lot of the public would probably automatically think before they even hear about it, oh, that's something to do with the weather. Nothing to do with me. But today we're very much focused on that guy called metrology, which is important to all of us. All right? Now, the Act speaks, it gives effect to international agreements and standards. And we talked about SI units a little bit earlier. And you would probably hear later on about how we came about deriving these SI units as the international units globally. It also establishes modern institutions. So we have BNSI and we have the CCA, but what's happening is that the Act includes BNSI as a national metrology institute. So we will be the guys almost owning and managing metrology in country. And there is a legal metrology authority when the Act is proclaimed that you will learn more about from the enforcement point of view. You know, you get inspectors actually going out into the field, doing checks, making sure that the scales are working well, making sure that your measurement practices are correct, and that kind of thing. Now, I'm seeing a hand in the back to get our attention. Oh, it's Damien's attention. Okay. So at the heart of the Metrology Act is about trust. When consumers purchase goods, and we will go through a few examples. If you look to the table here, you will see 2 pieces of equipment. In our world, we call them artifacts. And if you really drill down into our metrology world, they are standards. You know, sometimes when you hear about a standard, you think about a guidance document with specifications so that you know how to get it right. And that's true. But equipment can also be classified as a type of standard, meaning how do you even check to make sure that my scale, for example, is working well? How is that done? And later in the session, we will actually show you how that's done. Alistair, welcome, sir. Always a pleasure to see you. Good morning. There's a lovely chair up front if you're looking. All right. All right, so we're committed in terms of the agencies that I outlined to you. And I will close there and hand the mic to my colleague. Now, is Damien still in the room? I saw Damien stand. Damien is left. So I'm going to pause there and hand you to Margaret Campbell, Leslie, who, again, the Deputy Director of the DCCA, and she will tell you a little more from the legal metrology side. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you, Hayden. Hello, good morning, everyone. Well, we are here to help you to understand a bit more about what we do in terms of metrology. Now, I know, as Hayden would have said, we all would have had some experience. So I want to start by focusing on type approval. And what is type approval? It's just that the instrument has to be approved for the particular use that you're going to use it for. Now, a question to you, just to engage you. How many of you have bought some produce, meat, whatever, and you feel as if you didn't quite get the amount that you paid for? And what did you do? You didn't do nothing? Someone say something? You did nothing. You did nothing.
So we had some hands raised. So I would like to, right here.
I have to start. Well, I had my gas filled at the gas station. In fact, I'll tell you, I filled up the tank on Bay Street, drove to St. James, and the gas light came on again. So I had to go back to the gas station and inform the persons that whatever they did, they didn't do something right. And they made amends to me, filled up the gas tank.
Unusual. Any other comments?
Respect. Comments here? No? Yeah.
Yes, I also, good morning to all, first and foremost. Right. I had an experience there at a well-known establishment. I'm a vegetarian, so I like chips, and I went to purchase some chips, and I actually asked for a large one, and it was a package, so I asked them to upgrade it to a large, but I noticed the person had the container squeezed instead of pushing up that little part at the bottom where it fully opens that would hold the full amount of chips. And when I done, the chips was actually like a small, so when me and my son started to eat, he was like, "Papa, how come the chips done already?" I say, well, actually, rather than they pushing up the little thing and filling it with chips, they had it actually squeezed down and just dropping a little bit of chips, and that had us a little dissatisfied from the service.
No, thanks for those two examples. Both very disheartening examples. Different, but equally, when you see a consumer not getting value for your money, no one's happy. Now, nowadays, where the cost of goods is something that everyone is watching, every dollar that you spend, you have to be careful because things are expensive, true? We do not want to complicate matters where we are getting shortchanged for our trade, So we have to strengthen our systems to make sure that our measurements are right. And that's exactly the area that Margaret is in, yeah.
So I want to look again a bit at the skills because I know we've had some, and I think Damien would have done some kind of investigation there. Oh, you're not hearing? Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Where you go to and buy something, and especially you find the smaller vendors, they tend to use their kitchen skills. And those skills we cannot guarantee you will be accurate. Now, what the new bill says that if you go to buy something and it is weighed, for example, and you are not comfortable, that you ask the person to measure it again in front of you, that you can see that they're measuring it correctly, but they must also have the correct skill in order to give a correct measurement, and that's something that we'll be looking at. I was going to say, do you remember? But y'all would not remember. You're too young. No, they won't remember. But back in the day when you go to the shop and the old shopkeeper had the, you know those old time that you had to balance with? Yeah. And they would put it on and then they would take their finger, they would press down. You don't see that it really and truly that finger is causing you not to get the amount that you're paying for. So we want to be able to have you get what you are paying for. And therefore we want to have measuring instruments that can be verified. And again, what comes to my mind, Hayden, is if you are selling something. Suppose you are selling, say vegetables. You grow your own stuff and you're going to take it to somebody to sell them, and then they will sell it then to the supermarket or whatever. Or you're selling gold or something. You're selling something. You're selling me gold, for example, or selling me vegetables, and I am providing the measuring instrument. It is an offense for me to have you give me more than what I pay you for. So these are the things that the bill will seek to address. One of the other areas I want to look at is the radar guns, because that is one of the things that that the bill will also address. And again, it's okay. How many of you have been stopped by the policeman for speeding? Don't be ashamed. I have my hand up. Yeah.
All in the back hands going up. Like, yeah.
And what you thought, that it was okay that you were speeding, that you did what he said, that you didn't think so. You were not speeding. So we want to, hey, do you want to say something? We want to build trust in the legal system so that when the policeman stop you and say to you, ma'am, sir, you've been doing X amount of kilometers per whatever per on this 60-kilometer road, that you can say, yes, but okay, give him a little break. Because you feel that his instrument has clocked you correctly, and then all you can do is ask for leniency. I was stopped already, I didn't feel as if I was doing what he said I was doing. So having this new bill in place, where you're able to verify those guns, then you have that trust in the legal system, because when you ask for this break and you don't get it, but you get a summons instead, and you have to go to the court, you know that what you're being charged for, that you know that really and truly I was speeding. But right now, you're not feeling that comfort that you are being accused of speeding when you're not. So we want to be able to have those instruments verified, that when these things happen, you are comforted that the right things are being done. Now, one of the things that we have, okay, let me just touch a bit on prepackaged foods, prepackaged goods. And I think Hayden would have mentioned it before. I actually had an experience like this. But anytime a seller is going to place food in a container, a prepackaged container, then that food, we go with the net weight. If he does it in front of you, however, then there's certain things that he doesn't have to place on that container. But certainly, what is in the food should be net. And I went to a place to buy some food, and they put the food into the container, and styrofoam container, but we didn't have the plastic at then, into styrofoam container, and they weighed it. And I looking at the scale, and I see the indicator going sort of shifting. So I said, well, why is that moving like that? She said, oh, that's the wind, from the fan. So that told me that that scale was not a scale that should have been used, one, and two, that I was being charged food price for styrofoam. I win, right? So these are things that we will be looking to ensure that consumers are not being taken advantage of. And it can go both ways. We say consumers at times, but it can go both ways where the seller, the business person, is giving you much more than you are paying for. And if he continues to do that, you can understand that his net profit will also decrease. So it goes both ways, where we protect consumers and we also protect enhanced trade by this fair measurement. Now, I look at when you travel. I guess you know, a little different now. You go online and you book your ticket and you go to the airport. We already know you can't have a suitcase that weighs more than, how much it is again? 50 who? 50 what? 50, come on. Oh? 23 kg, somebody here 50 pounds. So we are still in I'm still thinking pounds myself. But we know that, and I don't know, I've had the experience when my daughter was going off to Jamaica, and you pack up everything. And when you get there, they say, you got to take out some. And I had to take back home some because she only had one suitcase. So we understand that we have to pack our suitcases at a certain weight because we don't want to pay this 100 US for the overweight. But it's more important than that because the airlines also must watch the weight that they put on. And so those suitcases are weighed and they have to be weighed by, give you a maximum. But also when the airlines also carry cargo, those scales that they weigh the cargo on, those scales have to be verified as well because they can't overload the plane. So, but we take those, we don't think about those things when we buy our ticket, right? We just buy the ticket and we trust that all is well. But to me, these things, knowing that these things are happening behind the scenes, gives me trust in the industry. When I get on the plane, I know that there are people there who are looking out for my welfare. So I am not going to go into the penalties at this time. I will pass to Damien, and as we discuss, we will have penalties. We will get to that point.
We have a question online. Will the guns measure miles per hour or kilometers per hour? Which one can be verified internationally? Our speed limit signs are in kilometers per hour. You want me to repeat the question?
Yeah, we got it.
Pardon?
Okay, thank you for the question online. The radar guns do have interchangeable units, so you can see the speed of the vehicle in miles per hour or kilometers per hour.
Okay, Damien, thank you.
Wait for the mic.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, good morning.
Maybe you could say who you are.
My name is Vernal Nichols. I represent the Barnufo, the National Fisher Folks Association. In the scenario that is, pardon? Walcott. Right, with the radar guns. So I know in the case of the Fisher Folk, we're being told that we have to have these particular scales where the consumer can see the scale and we can also see the scale. And you were asking the question about how you feel if you didn't think that you were doing the speed that the police say you're doing. So is there a case then with these radar guns, do I have the right to ask the police, let me see these miles they are saying that I'm doing, or do I have to depend on what they say?
Well, when it happened to me, they told me and they showed me.
Yeah.
They also showed me what I was doing. Yeah, so.
No, it's a very, very good question. A little bit later on after the break, we will show you where the Act says that if you are a consumer or even just, a driver and you're stopped, if there's a measurement involved that you're uncertain about, you're well within your rights to ask to see the instrument for the measuring. Similarly, in the market, if you say that this is, I'm going to say pounds, don't crucify me, 10 pounds of fish, and someone feels as though, hang on, this quantity looks small, can I see the scale, please, where you've measured the fish? And that's well within their rights according to the Act. So if you're uncertain about any measurement that you're being charged for a product, you're well within your rights to ask to see the measuring device. David had another question this year.
Hi, good morning. My name is David Elcott. I'm from the Ministry of Agriculture. In a previous life, I would have worked in a lab, and yes, and for all the lab techs and laboratorians in the room, they'll know that in the laboratory we live and breathe metrology. Everything in the lab is about measurement and about quality.
Absolutely.
So forgive me, I as a prelude to the forgiveness, because I'm probably going to make a lot of interventions because this topic is near and dear to my heart. So the point I was going to make was really brought out more so by the lady in the front with the question about verifying the calibrating guns. Now, I pulled up the app on my computer, but I didn't read all of it. So I don't know what the app says about this, but when it comes to customer verification, it is not enough that you ask the policeman to see the gun, because you're going to see the gun, and what is the gun you're going to do? Absolutely nothing. It's going to show you it's going to show you the measurement that he read, the speed that you read. What is more important is that you are able to verify that the gun has been calibrated.
That's accurate.
So what should happen is that when you ask the officer to see the gun, and you don't want to see the gun when he gets to court, you don't want to see the gun when you're in court, you want to see the gun when you've been reported on the road. And what is more important is that when you look at the gun, if he shows you, that you can see when it was last calibrated and by whom, and what was the performance of the gun. And in court, if you want to get even more technical, and because all the lab people in here are shaking their head, I want to see the documentation for the last year and a half on how the gun performed. That is verification.
So you see how far down the rabbit hole this verification thing goes? Now, I've even studied with David, so the passion in which he has for calibration and getting measurements right, I totally embrace and endorse. He's stolen a little bit of the thunder from after the break, where we will show you not just measuring instruments, not just being privy to seeing the result, but how many know that machines sometimes go wrong? It's just a machine. But we trust these things like if it's the gospel, but you can get a machine that goes wrong. There were incidences where people lost their lives, David, because there were cancer patients, not in Barbados, in another country, and they were being treated with radiation doses in a particular hospital. The medical practitioner would look at the gauge, enter the amount according to your gender, your weight, your age. So they were given a very precise amount, keyed in properly. All the procedural steps, lab people, were done properly, methodically. However, the machine was off. Patients were getting 2,000 to 3,000 times the radiation dose, and three or four people died because of the excess radiation. Now, is it the medical practitioner's fault? Did he or she do something wrong? Not necessarily. Who's to blame? Now, if you have a machine where it's life or death, and you are not certain that it is accurate in the dispensation of radiation. There's liability there, you know. So you could be the head of this clinic in your bed lying down and get a phone call that you are now on charges for not making sure that the instruments that you were using were accurate. So this thing measurement is critical. I love David's passion. After the break, we will jump in, but I really want to allow Damien to go through. There's one more, and then after the break, we will take the other questions. One more. Go ahead, Alicia.
Mr. Abed, could you please go ahead and open your mic and ask the question? Thank you.
Hello, good morning, everybody. I'm concerned whether after the act is proclaimed, if vendors can still sell their merchandise in imperial measurements. And if not, can the merchandise then be sold in both imperial and metric measurements and advertised accordingly?
Yes. Great question, and thank you for joining us. I was hoping that you would be on this session, Mr. Abed, and we've had conversations before, but did you all hear the question? So the question was, look, we have, a traditional setting with people who are comfortable, not just the vendors, but the public, in Imperial. Will there be a provision where that will be allowed? So short answer, yes, and there will be a transition period. And what will also be allowed, for the second part of his question, is to have instruments like what Damien was referencing where the guns can switch. Yeah? Many of the scales that we will talk about later after the break, you have a mode selection where you can show both pounds and kilograms. What the BNSI is doing, we will print physical charts, we call them conversion charts, where you can go from your yards to your meters easily with the conversion charts. Similarly, with a lot of the point of sale cash registers and so on, they allow for dual systems. So we recognize that in Barbados, we're not just going to be able to flick a switch and tomorrow only allow meters and kilograms to be the trading thing. So we will allow the transition period, and yes, duality at first is going to be absolutely necessary. Let's be real. We're going to have people get familiar with both, so that if I go and I ask for 10 pounds, I can still get my 10 pounds, but on my receipt, it may show that 10 pounds, the equivalent in kilograms is this. You know what I mean? When I'm cashing out, I would pay exactly what I would have paid previously, so there's no increase in the quantity that I have to pay, none at all, but at least now I'm becoming more and more aware as to, okay, well, this fabric that I purchased is this amount of meters as well, yeah? And that will be for a period of time until we're comfortable enough. But certainly if you're purchasing a measuring instrument, or if you're purchasing to have one of your registers, cash registers, make sure that if it doesn't have kilograms alone, it has at least both. But you're not going to buy a system and be able to operate in it and use it if it is simply imperial without the dual systems. And many of the existing scales, and we'll talk about this after, many of the POS, cash registers today, they can switch easily from one to the next. Yeah? So excellent question, and it is something that is going to be needed, Mr. Abed, so that culturally we get that understanding of the SI units. Wonderful question. Thank you. Damien?
All right, thank you, Mr. Ryan. Morning, colleagues in the room and those online. If I could ask Alicia to pull up the PowerPoint on the importance of metrology, I'm just going to go through a few aspects of how the pending act will affect both the retail consumer space and the scientific metrology space. So can I get the clicker there, Mr. Ryan, please? No, you're good, you're good. All right, so I will just turn so that I can see the screen. Nonetheless, There are actually three aspects of metrology, right? There's scientific metrology, legal metrology, and industrial metrology. They all have their representative space in the sector. Scientific metrology is handled by BNSI. Legal metrology is handled by DCCA. Industrial metrology, that's in the manufacturing space. And I see some manufacturers in the crowd here today that we've worked with. All right? I don't want to bore you with the words on the screen, but uncertainty is definitely a term that the general public needs to understand. So when you get a certificate from BNSA or from any other metrology actor out there, because we're not the only metrology actor, you are to look for that term and that value of uncertainty. It gives you the measure of confidence in the measurement service or activity that was conducted on your behalf. And there are tolerances by sector. So obviously the uncertainty that will be accepted in the aviation sector is not the uncertainty that we will accept in the, let's say, the food and beverage sector. So you baking bread. The errors that I would allow in a bake factory, I am not going to allow in the aviation sector because it could be a life or death situation, right? It goes far above just the weight of the luggage in the whole of the cargo hold of the commercial aircraft, and this is something that goes all the way up to ICAO, right? The International Civil Aviation Authority. They have a set of rules that need to be adhered to. I want to get to slide 4 and get a bit more interactive. Everybody comfortable with ISO and knows what the ISO body stands for and how they're, yes, or most of us, I see head nodding, so I'm comfortable. The majority of you are. Then we have here the SI unit system. How many SI units are there? 5, 6, 7, 10? I mean, it's on the board. So we have length. Length is in meter. We have temperature, right? Thermodynamic temperature. We use Kelvin in the lab, but you guys are comfortable with Celsius and Fahrenheit, right? The scientific unit, however, is Kelvin. Electricity, ampere. So the current that comes to your homes or wherever you operate, your business. Time is in seconds. We covered that already. Candela, that's luminous, so that is the amount of light, right? And when I said light before, I meant electrical current, what you will get for power to your home or watts, not mass, and then we have moles. But nobody really refers to moles. Well, I wasn't finished, right? I was saying in the consumer space, right, it's not frequent that you will have somebody speak to you about moles, but the scientists in the room appreciate that terminology. So I want you to get comfortable with those 7 SI units. Those are the main SI units, and you see them on the outer ring. All of the ones on the middle, SI, these are related to the SI unit that's on the outside. So let's take it a bit further. Let's get down to the nitty-gritty. This is a chicken processing plant. Everybody trusts the weight of the chicken on the packaging when we go into the supermarket. Some people are saying no, that's disappointing. But I can tell you, at least for this one chicken processing manufacturer, the internal compliance is top-notch, above 98%. So you can more or less guarantee that so long as Damon Prescott and BNSI and Mr. Ryan and the parties that be are out in the space working, your chicken is accurately measured. And there are other aspects of it that we need to address in other sectors, which I will speak to. So you can have the confidence or sense of confidence that the twice yearly approach that we take to going into the processing manufacturing space to ensure that consumers are protected as well as retailers, because there could be economic losses if your operations in your facility are not conducted in an efficient manner. We've done it with another telecom client. They have been selling coax cable that we are not using anymore, which has a lot of copper in it, and they were measuring the coax cable incorrectly, accruing losses almost to the level of $250,000 in Barbados dollars when they ship the copper overseas, yeah? Because copper is one of those metals that people reuse, and it is very important for circuitry and in all types of sectors. So I want you to get an appreciation for the work that the Institute does while it helps consumers and retailers alike. So that's food processing. Any gamblers in the room? And it's legal here, so don't feel a way about saying yes or no. I don't believe you all, so I am very uncertain about the truth about this. Yeah, right? But how important is it for the Lahore balls to be accurate in terms of their weight? Anybody knows what could be done with a Lahore ball? If you go ahead.
So I guess it's interesting that you brought that up because I saw a story maybe about 3 days ago with a lotto scam in the States where two guys had injected two lotto balls with ink just to make them slightly heavier. So when the machine was running, those were the balls that were always falling down to the bottom. And as a result, those were the lucky numbers on the in the scam. But unfortunately, you know, criminals not the smartest, so they went mouth off to somebody and they got caught. But yeah, it's just interesting you brought it up because I saw a story like 2 days ago.
Yeah, interesting and important. So you can actually affect the lotto ball results by manipulating the weight of the balls. So we conduct that at the lab as well, thereby providing further transparency and trust in the gaming sector. That's just one example. So I'm trying to bring it home to you, laymen. We've spoken about the airport already. So we do it for the commercial scales, all 78. We do it for the private aircraft services over on the engineering side, ensuring that the scales are accurate. So you will know that when you go to the airport, your 22.5 or your 23 kilograms is measuring accurately, and you will see the stickers, right? So I'm going to look at Margaret and remind Margaret that the stickers have to be on the scale. So when the auditors pass through the airport, they know that it was recently calibrated and there is trust in those measurements for the luggage bags. Water meters, right? We've done work on the water meters with the BWA, ensuring that the smart sensors that are being installed across the island are working accurately as they should, because water is one of those commodities that we use daily, and you will want further trust and security in those services. I see BBC in the crowd, or at least I can't see him anymore. Oh, also is a sweet of you, because I see another shirt in the back, right? So we do work with BBC, their skills and their CO2 gas system that obviously puts the carbonated drinks, puts the gas in the carbonated drinks. That has to be measured. You don't want a bottle of Pepsi or a Coke on the shelf that is over gas. It might it could explode if it is over gas. It might not get to the retail space, but there is activity in that space as it relates to metrology. So you can get a clear sense of where we are, what we're doing, and how it will affect you. This is the QH lab. We've worked there and continue to work there. We spoke on this last week as well. These are some old instruments that we have since replaced. These are analog scales. Those measure organs from cadavers. And I would state that this is kind of like, you know, prehistoric methods to measuring. Analog scales are still useful, you know, as a backup, but you want to be utilizing digital scales that give you accuracy and don't present any drift or give you any mechanical errors, because these are all manually operated. And I have seen persons utilizing scales in the markets as well, Vernell, as you would know, in an inaccurate fashion. So we've since replaced that scale that you've seen there. Nice backdrop of the ocean. I love that. And Mr. Ryan and myself will go through today with you how to accurately level and operate a scale, right? That is important also. It's not always a situation where the scale is not measuring accurately. Sometimes it's the operator and how you utilize that device. Food and the International Food Science Center, food processing again, measurement of pH, acidity levels, those are all important to shelf life for products or some products. So we are there in that space as well. I want to touch, that's aviation. I want to touch on, this is an area of passion of mine, the fishery sector. There's work that needs to be done in that space. when we go into the market, we ask for fish in what manner? Let me pick on somebody. No, I don't want Vernell involved. Right? This is a Pavana shirt I'm reading. Yeah, you buy fish from the market. When you go in the market, what do you ask for? How much pounds? Let's. All right, so 10, 15 pounds, we go and we ask Vernell, we want 10 to 15 pounds of dolphin. What does Vernell do? I want to see the screen again, Alicia, please. You weigh the dolphin on the scale, and then what the vendor does. Don't be afraid. Speak about it. We all see it every day.
In the market, usually, I hear you talking about the customer seeing the scale. Most of the time, we can't see the scale.
Oh, I'll touch on that too. Don't worry about it. We can get there.
So they cut the fish.
And what do you leave with when you exit the market? What do you leave with in your hand? The same 15 pounds?
No.
Okay.
I leave it without the skin, without the bone.
And is that a fair and just consumer practice?
Well, I guess the person market, the way they look at it is that you're buying fish and the fish comes with bone. It's your choice not to take the bone or the skin.
That's a great answer.
Right?
So that is what they do. But for fair trade, if a consumer requests 15 pounds of fish, then they should be walking out of the market with 15 pounds of fish. Just as you walk out of the supermarket with 2 pounds of chicken or 3 pounds of lamb, you need to leave that consumer space with the fish, right? Vernell is going to have her own twist to that scenario, but the consumer and the market vendor have their own rights to exercise. So at least one market now has a digital, well, more than two markets have digital scales, but the ones that BNSI has had a role in donating would be Pile Bay and Bridgetown. So this is a scale, not that we had any involvement in it, but this is also a digital scale. And you can see here the analog scale that is usually used in the market. And I have seen people placing fish on the scale with the head and the tail off. Anybody goes to the doctor and stands on the scale like this? When you go to the doctor, he doesn't allow you to stand on the scale like that, right? Yeah? You have to stand on it so that your weight goes down through the load cell and it measures all of you, your body. The same thing with fish. So in actual fact, the operators in the market are doing themselves a disservice because you are cutting off at least a half pound or a 3/4 of a pound off of each fish that you're processing daily. So when you add that up over a month or a year, you're losing money as a vendor. So we now over into the vendor space and how we can correct some of their activities and make sure that their livelihoods are protected by creating revenue streams for them or more efficient revenue streams. All right, so those are some real life examples of how metrology is playing an active role. And these are the girls at Pell Bay smiling with their new digital scale, which the customer can see. That is actually a touch screen scale whereby the consumer sees, yes please, both pounds and kilograms if so fit. All right, so Vernell, if you would like to get your hands on one, we can have a discussion. We can donate one to you as well. Go ahead. We got one question first. We can get to
Right.
Vernell after, please.
So I just have a question about the same scale and the weighing of the fish. So you're saying that if you're supposed to keep the head and the tail on and weigh the fish like that, but when they sell it to the consumer, then we only pay for the fish. So then who would bear the cost for the head and the tail that comes off?
Well, in the commercial fisheries sector, where you have other players, not the vendors in the market. So this, I don't want to call any names, but there are other commercial players. You pay a price for processing.
Okay.
So when a commercial fish retailer buys wholesale fish locally or from internationally, they process it in their factory and there's a markup. If you go into some of these supermarkets and you see what a 5-pack of flying fish costs compared to a 5-pack or a 10-pack of flying fish in the market, it's chalk and cheese. It's almost like the price of a whole chicken or more. So who's going to spend the price on 5 flying fish when you could get a whole chicken, right? I just speaking like a regular consumer. I go into supermarket too. So your answer is question.
Yes,
yeah.
yes,
All right.
yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
Vernell, go ahead.
So while the mic is coming to Vernell, After Vernell speaks, we will take just a 20-minute break, okay? Get something to drink, refresh. Online, we'll take a 20-minute break, and we will really dive into these examples when we return with some, accuracy, all right? So after the response, we will, wrap up Damien, and then we will come back to it, and maybe Damien can finish the presentation, and we will go into some details because we do have some of the instruments on the table, and we will give very, very practical examples of what works, what is useful, what is a bad practice, what needs to be corrected. Okay, for now.
Thank you. So let me state first that we are open for correction. We're here to learn, and that if there's anything we're doing wrong, we are open to be corrected, and this is what this training is about. So the practice, I know that persons say they're being robbed. And the scenario that actually with me here is one of my colleagues, Miss Young, and she is very active in the Paynes Bay market selling, so she does a lot of weighing and those kind of things on a daily basis. So we talk about 10 pounds of fish. So I just want some clarification if I'm wrong. So if a person comes to the market and say they want 10 pounds of fish, to us there's a difference between 10 pounds of fish versus a 10-pound dolphin. So if you call for 10 pound, really persons say they want 10 pounds of fish. So we take a dolphin, weigh it is 10 pounds. I believe the onus is on us to explain the difference to the consumer, because a 10-pound dolphin, if you want 10 pounds of dolphin, you have to use more than a 10-pound dolphin to have that final 10 pounds of dolphin, as opposed to a 10-pound where you separate the bones and all of that, and by the time you leave, you have less fish. So it is obviously then going to be a difference in price, because if the 10-pound dolphin is weighing at, say, $8 or $9 a pound, and then you have to use 2 dolphins to get the 10 exact pounds that you want, then clearly the price is different. So therefore, Damien will explain to me
Yeah, well, it's
what
simple.
it is that we have to do right.
If the customer requests 10 pounds of fish, I guess the onus is on the consumer to say, I want 10 pounds of fish flesh. This is something that we have to work on in terms of sensitization and collaboration with all players, right? If I come in the market and I want 10 pounds of fish, it does not mean that you're supposed to weigh a 10-pound dolphin, peel the skin, take out the bones, cut off the head. The ask if you want, anybody hear the term, you want half on bone or otherwise, the customer is to leave with, 5.25 kilograms of fish, right?
Very good, very good, very good.
Right when they walk out to the market, that's by right. If they get home and they go and they weigh their fish and it is not 5.25 kilograms, you have invariably shortchanged them. So I will be asking now for 5.5 kilograms of fish flesh. So I want the meat, that's what I want to leave with. There's a question online, and we will take it quickly and then go to break.
So just before Alicia does the question online, this understanding is critical, This is, us as consumers, but we also want to support the vendors and their livelihood. Now, there are best practices that we will encourage, and certain norms and traditions that we had that we have to explain around in terms of how do you even communicate what you want. But the biggest point here is that as a consumer, when you're parting with money, you should be purchasing the net weight of the commodity. Net weight. And for those of you who may not be familiar, gross weight is the weight of the packaging, the container, the can, because it might be beans in a can, liquid water if you have, but you want the product. So even when you look at prepackaged food, you're parting with a set of money because it is priced per kilogram. And that's the point. Priced per kilogram for the net weight. In other words, if I want 10 kilograms of something, I should be going home with 10 kilograms. Now, there is a processing fee that has to be discussed, and that was your point. There is, you know, if I purchase chicken, do I purchase it with the feathers and the beak? If I ask for 3 pounds of lamb, a cow head? So we have unique systems with our fisheries sector, which we do need to, you know, get some best practices. But I really welcome her conversation. After the question online, after the break, we can really jump on and see how we can smooth out the understanding for net quantity, which by rights, that's what you're asking for. Because just quickly, there are processors and there are processors. There are some guys who could process fish really efficient. You know, they're taking off the skin. There's only skin coming off, very little flesh. They're cutting through the bone. They're experts. So if you give a 10-pound fish to me to process for you, you might go home with 3 pounds because I am not as good. You get me? Another man who is efficient now could really go through, man, and you go home with a lot more. But then there is not consistency with what people are going home with, depending on how it's processed, who is doing it. You get me? So we have to get to a place where consumers are confident that they're going home with what they're paying for. That's all. That's all. So the question online.
Go ahead, Miss Amy. You can unmute your mic.
Yeah, we're not hearing you. Okay, I'm not certain if the mic is unmuted. Alicia? All right, so failing that, maybe
Okay,
if Miss Amy, yeah, go ahead.
She said, I am sorry if I missed it, but does the BNSI visit all manufacturing plants to ensure scales are accurate, or is this something the company has to request? Another thing she said is also, would third-party calibration be required? I am not able to, okay.
BNSI does not visit all manufacturers. We do visit quite a few. So the answer to the question is no, we don't visit all. It is more on a basis of requests and those clients that we have in our wheelhouse as stakeholders, in collaboration with my colleague to my left at DCCA. Some of DCCA's clients also reach out to BNSI and request assistance in the manufacturing space, but we at present don't have the personnel capacity to visit everybody or all as described. But the major ones we do definitely reach to. I wouldn't call their names, but yes, we do get out into this space and verify that trading quantities are being measured accurately. This is in the construction sector, the food and beverage sector, the aviation, rum, the port, wherever you think about trade happening, there's a presence of DCCA and BNSI.
If I can add to that, under the new bill, because all measuring instruments will need to be verified. That's law. And you would have heard Hayden speak to the National Legal Metrology Authority right now under the Department of Commerce, and that authority will be staffed with competent officers that will indeed correct the deficiencies we now see in the system, so that we ensure that the measuring instruments are verified. Now, we'll also need to have some regulations in place as well before we get things going as we want to go. So that is something that we will do. But I just wanted to quickly address a point that David made about the guns. Also in the Act and also in the old Act, what is required that when an instrument is verified, there is a verification mark that is placed on the instrument. If it's too small, it will give you a verification certificate. But we can also ask, because I remember when I was stopped by the police, I asked him when last was the gun calibrated. Because we also have calibration certificates that are given by manufacturers so that you kind of use that as a way of saying the instrument is accurate. And then we will go in and we will do an initial verification, and then we will do a subsequent verification 6 months or a year, depending on what the instrument is. So yes, we can ask that we see that particular sticker that is applied.
Fabulous. Thank you, Margaret, for that response. Later on, you'll get to see some of the verification stamps in effect. We are so excited with these questions. However, I'm not saying no to the questions, but we've measured the time that we said we will give you a break, and we're over by 10 minutes and 39 seconds and counting. So we will break quickly, okay? And remember your question online. We're going to take a 20-minute pause. The room is abuzz with eagerness to discuss these metrology issues, and for that I am heartened. But we do need to take a little bit of a break. Remember the question, Rhonda and team, so that when we come back, we will jump straight back into the questions and even the other online questions that we had. All right? Thank you so much. So let's just take a very, very quick refresh and come back in about 20 minutes, please. Thank you. Morning. And we had quite a nice break. We had some lovely discussions among ourselves. At my table, I rather enjoyed the conversation that I had with Barvin, and I know that I saw very engaging conversations across the tables. Thank you for returning online. What you can do, your online viewers, if you have any comments, if you have any assistance that you need from the BNSI or the DCCA or any other agency regarding, your being prepared to operate in an environment with accurate measurements, please, 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 you can type your request and leave your contact information in the chat so that we can respond to you, if not in the session, certainly at a later date. But thank you. There was a question raised. I will stand at this point. There was a question raised about coconut water. And someone asked me, and I see a lot of the heads here nodding and people smiling. Someone asked me, all right, so the vendors across the length and breadth of Barbados selling coconut water, that's fine. And someone asked, but so do they have to label the bottles to say that it's coconut water? I heard that labeling is going to be part of this Metrology Act and the expectation for labeling. All right. So I will throw that question to the audience. Do you think? I hear yeses and I hear no's. Do you think? Okay, so the yes, let me hear why is a yes, if you don't mind. With the microphones, I'm not saying yes this year. So the question again, vendors with coconut water, do they need to put labels on the bottles when they're selling the water?
Yes, for quality, and just like how I went out there and got, there was food out there not labeled, so I had to ask if it was chicken or fish. So I was telling the young lady that, and I guess because I'm in the lab, so certain things not labeled affects me. So just for quality, it should be labeled if it's coconut water or just fresh water, just water.
So quality advocates understand the need for labeling. Anyone brave enough that has a no in their response? Let's go, Rhonda. You don't mind, sir? And then, okay. Rhonda, say who you are and where you're from.
Sure.
Okay, I know there's a hot one, but just listen to Rhonda. Listen to Rhonda.
All right, so I'm Rhonda Ward from Barbados, Barbados Bottling Company. Sorry. I would say no because we already start up and watch them cut the coconut and put it in a bottle. If we bought the bottle of coconut water without having seen that, then yes, but at that point in time, the bottle is just a repository for something that you already seen cut.
All right, so let's hear one. So this is going to be debated, but let's hear one more comment. One more comment. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I guess
say who you are.
Oh, sorry. My name is Kamal Seal, engineer from Emira.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, tell me that. Hold on. Yeah, my name is Kamal Seal, engineer from Emira Caribbean. I guess I would say no. I guess I would more lean towards the bottles that they use might more need not necessarily a label, but the measurement, demarcation on where to fill the bottle, because I don't know if y'all get a consistent bottle of coconut water when they cut the coconut. You can't verify for me that he's put that amount of coconut water in it. That's my take on it.
All right, so this is a response with a twist. So not just a quality consideration, but then his concern is more quantity and making sure that as a purchaser, he's getting the right quantity. So let me tell you, the world of labeling and prepackaged, a lot of discussion went into this with the particular Metrology Act. And there is a term called prepackaged good. What does that mean to you? Prepackaged good. What comes out to you when you hear prepackaged good? Prepackaged good. Let them, yeah?
I'm thinking packaged beforehand.
Right, and beforehand meaning what?
Well, it could have been packaged somewhere and brought there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. So I'll tell you what. You know, you go and you see products in the supermarket, for example, on the shelves on stores, pre-packaged. You may purchase from someone who's bringing a commodity to you. Nowadays, a lot of people are into distribution, and they would think you can order online or on the phone, and they bring it to you pre-packaged. Now, the situation with the vendors cutting a commodity while you stand there, it does not fall or is not classified under pre-packaged, okay? And that's why it's allowed to have them contain the water in the bottles. Now, there is a quality side of the discourse as well, because, and the vendors would know, you have to make sure that the bottles are what? Sterile. You have to make sure that the people handling the bottles have access to what? Wash their hands. You're out from sometimes on a Sunday, which to me is the biggest commercial coconut water day in Barbados, and I have a lot of respect for those guys. A lot of them young guys, but you see them working for their money. Enough respect for those guys. Working from sometimes 7 in the morning, coming down till evening without stopping. But they're perspiring. They may need to use a restroom. All of these things are important when you're discussing what? Quality. So as a quality culture, we have to manage several things. Am I getting a fair deal for the quantity, as was said here, for my money? And quantity is something that, and I will be honest with you, we have spent a lot of focus on quantity as a culture. So even our purchasing decisions, when we hold two things that might look the same or different brands but the same product, one is cheaper than the next. What's the first thing a Bajan is likely to do? Let's be honest. Let me be honest. Okay. So most of the people in the room, 98% of the people, I don't know what online thinks. But we have this as a culture, you know. We, because of its, a high cost economy, things are expensive, but we've been programmed almost to reach for the cheapest good. Are you right or wrong? And we don't always measure in our minds the quality. And the quality is just as important, I would even say more important, because guess what? Coconut water in a bottle does not sterilize. What is going to happen? You're sick. Does coconut water last when you try to keep it? Not really. You have to, sorry, there's an echo. You refrigerate, yes, but it's still not going to last a week and a half, 2 weeks in the fridge. It's not going to last, right? If I witness coconuts being cut and the water being poured in and I take away the bottle, at most, David, I might be concerned with how much I am getting because it may not be a full fill. But the law says that all prepackaged goods must display the correct net quantity, prepackaged, okay, in the legally required units of measurement. So weight in kilograms or grams, volume in liters or milliliters, or count as applicable. So let us go down to juices. And I have my colleagues in the room as well. So now you're moving from in front of the customer to prepackaged. Not so? So you're preparing it at home. You may have a little setting where you have your, your things laid out nicely and you prepare it even in a small factory, a little business area, wherever you prepare. But it's prepared and it's packaged and then it's taken somewhere for sale. So it's a prepackaged goods. juices, health drinks, those kind of things, snacks and so on that you prepackage and sell as a vendor by law, you should label. And the label is very, very important because I am passing there, I have no idea what is inside. No idea what is inside. Yeah? And I'm relying on an accurate label to tell me. I may be allergic to a few things that you have in there and not know. You need to put them on the label. There are a lot of health drinks nowadays, a lot of shakes and blends. Do you know people have very severe nut allergies? Raise your hand if you know this. Allergies to nuts. And I'm not talking about allergy like I just don't feel nice. I mean allergies that you can get swelling, you can't breathe. People can die if they ingest things that they have a nut allergy for without knowing that it had nuts in it. In processing, you may be doing several things. You have one blender, so you're doing your nut shakes and so on, and then you switch to your juices. Do you know that people with severe allergies, even if there are traces, you understand what I mean by traces? Small residues of one thing that you're allergic to and you switch to another product, you can cause serious problems. Agreed? So there's this need for, if you can put the presentation up, please, and the pointer is here. So we're going to walk through kind of like a compliance checklist for you. In other words, what do I really have to keep in mind to be able to follow being compliant with the act? All right? And we're at labels and we're at net quantity. So we're talking about the labels. Now, retailers, so if you're retailing, the bill says that you cannot sell goods below the declared net quantity, except within prescribed tolerances. Now that might sound a little technical. I see the lab people nodding because this is language they understand, but let me bring it to a layman terms. If you are selling anything that you're making as a retailer, okay, you cannot have the net weight below what you have on the label. So on the label, if you have that is 3 kilograms, you cannot have less than that in your package. We're good? We understand that? Except within prescribed tolerances. Now, Damien started to talk about what is a tolerance. And the word tolerate means that, you know, you would allow certain things. Good? Different commodities have different tolerances. We talked about petrol earlier. And we talked about measuring the quantity. If I go to the petrol station, as David did, and I ask for 5 liters, this is a 5-liter prover, this one. If the camera wants to pull in on it, we can. Now this is a working standard. In other words, this is one of the types of tools. There are different types. This is one type that can be used by the verification entity, where they would go into the petrol station with this device. It's called a working standard. And you would fill it with 5 liters of petrol from the pump. So you put the dispenser and you fill this with 5 liters of petrol, okay? And then there's a certain level that the 5 liters needs to come to in this device. All right? But there's a tolerance. In other words, if you get a few drops more or a few drops less, they won't kill you. There is a tolerance. There's an amount that, you know, you would allow if it is not smack on. And that tolerance is described in the law. So you get a few milliliters above or below your 5 liter. All right? Now, I don't know if the camera can zoom in, and I would encourage any of you to come closer so that you could see. You see this tag here? This particular device was in turn calibrated by the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards. All right? And I just brought this one as an example. And when they did the calibration, they affixed this tag onto the device. What that means is that although we're checking the petrol pump and the dispenser to make sure it is accurate, who's to say that this device is accurate, right? So this device also needs to be calibrated for accuracy. And when it was calibrated, there's this tag, all right? Now, how many of you know when you're measuring what a meniscus is? Going a little scientific, I know the lab people will know. What's a meniscus? A little curve on the liquid. You know, you put liquid in a bottle, and if you look at the top, it has like a shape like this. You know, a slight curve, yeah? You call that a meniscus. Now, if I were to put liquid to measure it in a cylinder, which is calibrated and graded, do you measure from the top of the meniscus when it hits the line, or the bottom of the meniscus? And this is important. I hear top and bottom. What are we doing? We measure from the top or the bottom? Huh? From the bottom. So if I fill this with water, and I should bring some. So if I fill this measuring with water, and I look from here, and I see that it reads, can I look from here? Why not? I need to be at eye level. Now these are things that sometimes you think you're doing the right thing. You talked about practices. But if you're not taught it, if it's not trained, if it's not something that you know, you just don't know. The difference between me reading how much water in here from here, or if I were to either go down to the level or raise the thing here, is two different readings. So even practices make a difference with the accuracy of your measurement. And BNSI, we're open to even more detailed training sessions than this, where we train business persons who are into measurement how to measure accurately. All right? So we learned that for the gas, yes, there are provers that they take into the petrol stations to prove that the dispensers are working properly. And if they're out of tolerance, meaning if the dispenser gives you less petrol than is allowed by the Metrology Act, what happens? What do you think happens? Well, what do you think happens? Anyone? This here? All right, well, before the fines, man, you got to give a fella a chance to correct a thing. You know, he might not even know that is out. Good? So what happens?
They have to be taken offline and have the remedy.
This here needs some help, please. Who has it?
Sorry. I had a question.
Oh.
I haven't been able to ask it yet.
Okay, so you want to go there first then?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask about, this is going back to the coconut vendors.
Coconut
really
vendors.
quickly.
Uh-huh.
I just wanted clarification. So you're saying if the coconut vendor cuts the coconut in front of you and pours it into the bottle doesn't need to be labeled?
So I'm saying that is not classified as pre-packaged. So it does not fall into the same criteria being requested of pre-packaged goods, which is that you have to have a label. Yes?
So the ones, for example, the ones that...
In the supermarket and so on must be labeled.
No, the ones at Newton, for example, like the gentlemen that are on the side of the highway, but they're cutting, that's what he's talking about?
Yeah.
So those ones don't...
So if it is being cut fresh there on the day, you don't consider that as pre-packaged. If it is something that is being sold that the guys had prepared before, you need a label. Why? Because it is pre-packaged. Yeah? So the same water, some of the vendors supply retail stores. So Massey carries coconut water, not so? Some of the other stores carry coconut water. And those guys have to produce labels, not so? Juice man? Yeah. Yeah.
So, okay,
yeah.
But what I'm saying is, if I stop on the highway with the young fellas that are selling on the highway, I can't see him pouring it in the bottle. they would cut it over there by bank. It's banks. That's over there.
Oh, I get you now,
and
I
the
get
young
you.
fellas
And
come
come
down
over
also.
and they're holding up the thing already
Correct.
filled
So
and
I'm
thing.
asking if those ones
All
require
right,
a
so
label.
culturally, that's where we need to do some training. That is where we need to do training. And I'm not saying that mischief always happens, but guess what? I was 16 once, and I didn't always have good ideas in my head when I was 16. And some of them might be, well, if I put a little bit of water in here, you know what I mean? They ain't getting it might be a little watery. But I feel that I feel for every bottle that I cut, I could get a bottle and a half. And just bring it and sell it, and the consumer will know. You go home thinking, well, this little watery, but I guess it's green coconuts that he's using. I'm not saying this happens. I am being recorded. I am live across Barbados, and I want to maintain my job. This does not happen in the Barbadian vending circle. However, it could. Good? So you raise a very good question, because that is technically pre-packaged. And it needs, I think the answer to that is that it needs training. It needs for the association to really make things clear so that the young men know, listen, you stepping into a different realm when you just bring in bottles of water. What if the 4 bottles that they had all day didn't sell, and the main reason, I ain't throwing away this? Huh? First thing tomorrow morning, man, the first 4 that can go. I'm not saying that happens. Barbados, please, hear me. All I'm saying is we do need to safeguard our practices so that consumers are in the trust realm with what you're purchasing, and to protect the vendors as well. Because guess what? Most of them are following the right practices. Good? So it is to really weed out the opportunity for, buffoonery, according to my little daughter, to happen, where then there's this element of. So I'm going to invite Alistair or even Jusman to give a comment, but before that, there is, as a consumer, when you're more aware, your purchasing practices reflect that. Are you more comfortable purchasing from the man that you might have to wait a little bit, and he cutting, and you standing up, they got people before you, but you see people queuing there, whereas the 2 guys that holding, they don't even have coconuts around. And they're saying, it's the same water, say, come. Some of them begging to sell the water because there's no trust. You get me? So there's also the consumer practice of trust that would make the difference between if you do well or if you don't. When people trust your practices, you get a line of people coming for your thing. And that's the whole point of the Metrology Act and Trust. Alistair, you wanted to add to what I'm saying, or maybe James? Yeah.
Yes, once again, my name is Robert Malone, representing Barvin. What we would say on that matter is that Barvin strive for the highest standards, and we deal with best practices. So what we would like to do is encourage all the vendors to strive for those high standards. Although we say it's a thin line between prepackaged and selling direct, we would still encourage all persons to, if they can, to try to label their bottles. That way the customers would know for sure what they're purchasing. It could have a best before date, those sort of things, to let you know that you have up to this time. So we find that the public would feel much more safer if the packages were labeled.
I have the mic, but I think Robert deserves a round of applause for that comment. Why? What he's saying is that the vendor association is mindful to go beyond compliance, into quality. And I applaud you, sir, for that posture and that response. I have a few questions here. Maybe one question online. Alicia can let me know when that can be taken as well.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. One of the things that I would like to be able to carry back to our fisher folks is there, because most vendors are not necessarily registered as small businesses. They just operate. I'm not saying in the industry, everybody is like this. But in the cases of protecting the public and yourself, and from the act, is there a law that says a vendor can be charged if they're not doing the things that you're talking about in terms of giving correct weight and stuff like that? Is there something where persons would know that they can be taken to court and stuff like that, where laws are put in place to help pull people in line?
Okay, excellent question, and I see the team already prepared to respond.
Thank you for the question, Vernell. In section 38.1, and I quote, "A person who sells, offers for sale, or exposes for sale any article or good, where such article or good is sold by unit of measurement, shall on request by the purchaser measure the article or good in the presence of that purchaser." Clause 2, "A person who purchases any article or good and provides the measuring instrument for determining the quantity to be purchased shall on demand by the seller measure the article or good in the presence of that seller." This section does not apply to prepackaged goods, and the person who contravenes subsection 1 or 2 is guilty of an offense and is liable on summary conviction to a fine of 10,000 Barbados dollars or to imprisonment for 1 year or to both, and in the case of a subsequent offense, to a fine of 20,000 Barbados dollars or to imprisonment for 2 years or to both.
Yeah, please.
Okay, so we're saying that all instruments used should be verified. So it reads, section 31 reads, "A person who uses a measuring instrument that has not been verified by a legal metrology officer in the course of trade, business, or in other circumstances where the members of the public must interface with or use the measuring instrument for a fee," that doesn't really apply to you, but what it's saying here, I mean the part about using for a fee. If you use an instrument, a scale, that has not been verified, then there is a fine, a similar fine of $10,000, 20 for a subsequent offense, and or imprisonment for 2 years or both. So your instrument should be verified for accuracy.
Okay, and let's go deeper on what does that mean. So I have a scale on the table here, and we would not expect that all vendors in Barbados would have a fancy digital scale like the one that I have displayed here. Okay? Let us be real. Are the regular balanced, what they call countertop scales, are those going to be allowed? Yes. Once the scale can display either kilograms alone or pounds and kilograms. Do you know why? Because all that we've spoken about accuracy this morning, if you only have a scale that does pounds only, there is no agency, there is no mechanism, there's no framework for any of us to calibrate to make sure it is accurate. In other words, if you only have a pound scale, there is no way of checking to see if it is accurate or not. There's no way, because the international system is built off of, and I will go with my friend Alistair, the International System of Units, commonly known as SI units. All of the equipment that we have at BNSI, that any calibration authority or laboratory has, that Margaret Campbell has with the Legal Metrology Authority, all of our equipment is based on the International System of Measurement. So the old imperial, and before you came, Alistair, we had a conversation about how we've been indoctrinated with some imperial stuff, you know, as a people. That's what we know. That's what we know. But if I have a balanced top scale and I am using that for trade and I'm taking people's money, but on the other side of it, I cannot tell you if the scale is working well or not. I can't. There's no means to do it. That could create a problem. Do you all agree? That could create a serious problem. You might be robbing people or robbing yourself. But there's no mechanism to do so. So it's going to be in a regulation. There are going to be fines. Now, again, the transition period will allow for you to move from not being compliant to being compliant. And that particular clause, Margaret and I, we were discussing it this morning, the recommendation is to even have a set time period for which clause 31 will be considered when it comes to the fines and so on. Now, if a fine for doing something like using a scale that is inaccurate, if a fine is $10, is there any real pressure to make sure that your scale is working well? No. If you know, a man would say, well, nobody never come and check my thing. And on the odd occasion that they come and check and they realize that I think I get paid the $10 and keep moving, you know what I mean? So fines normally, when you look at regulations and legislation, have to be, and yes, a determinant from doing foolishness. No. Others might argue, but so a quality man. So there can be a cost to me now, you know, to adjust, to make sure that I lining up with this thing. Short answer, yes. But you are investing in yourself and your business so that there's trust, so that there's fairness, so that there's accuracy. Because guess what? Your investment, you might be robbing yourself out of that same amount every week or every month. Certainly every year maybe. You don't know. So are we going to continue as a society where we cannot check and measure to make sure that our measurements are accurate? We can no longer afford to. Okay? I hope that answers some of the questions that we had. Rhonda had one.
Yeah, so this is very important. We speak a lot about quality, and I think the conversation is not understood that there's quality and safety as well. So for instance, if we have sensors or scales or anything that is not properly calibrated, you could actually be causing safety issues or harm or something like that. And that point you just made about the cost that we are looking at is very, very pertinent, because there's a big cost for calibrations. And I would like to know what is the support, what type of support mechanisms we in Barbados could expect from the government for this. Presently, we have to export a lot of our equipment, our sensors. We have to bring people to do it, and this is is a goal to ensure that we keep our standards. So one of the things that we have not been able to cross is accreditation. So we would say, okay, we were able to have the BNSI come in and they will assist as you guys do. But then when we are asked about accreditation, we are not able then to provide that. And that is a hurdle that I would love for Barbados to really master.
I will join you in that desire, Rhonda. And I am heartened to tell you two things. One, coming out of the discussions, even when we were drafting the Metrology Act, it was totally critical for in-country us to have an agency that is forward when it comes to certification and accreditation. So for those of you listening in, just general public listening in, if you have a laboratory which is part of your company or part of your business, and you're testing to make sure that the quality of your product is meeting the specifications, one of the requirements is that you need to demonstrate that your laboratory is indeed competent and producing accurate results. Because you can have a lab and you're doing some funny things and producing some funny results. You know, I'm being honest, I can be frank with the microphone. So the word accreditation, we're not talking about people accreditation. So in Barbados, we're very familiar with the accreditation of persons in terms of training and, you know, we are talking about competence for testing and comparative analysis. So a lab needs to demonstrate that they're doing things accurately. And that's where accreditation comes in. Rhonda is speaking not from a medical laboratory, but from an analytical laboratory perspective. And there's a specific standard for that, by which BNSI is aligning to have support for businesses, for companies, for laboratories to be accredited. And the main interest with accreditation is to make sure that there is traceability from what you are doing to the international world. So in other words, in little Barbados that sits in the Atlantic Ocean, how can we know that what you're doing is in alignment with what is happening internationally? And that's where you build the trust. So we're here to link you there, and afterwards online we can go in some more details there. But even listening in, any interest to have calibration of your equipment, please, 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 we invite you to communicate with the BNSI, send us your list of equipment that you have. And I will be honest with the microphone. When you have calibration services from outside vendors or companies, first, you have to put the consultants in a hotel when you bring them. Are you right or wrong, Rhonda? That's a cost. Second, the plane ticket alone to bring them here. Are you right or wrong? So so straight off the bat, if you had a local entity who can provide you just as good as a service, you can see the cost savings already. I see in a lot of the heads nodding. So please, please, in the room and outside, communicate with us. Let's have that partnership with you as a member, because you actually get discounted rates as a member of BNSI. Yes, you're a member, I know. And we will see who we can, you know, connect to make sure that you get all of your calibration needs met. Is that okay? That makes you smile? All right. Now getting back to, I would like to put up my, sorry, the questions coming faster, furious. Yes, please.
I think everybody got some questions.
Yes, please.
My name is Kim. I am representing Carlisle Laboratories and / Event Barbados, but it's mainly for Carlisle. I work in quality. So I eat, sleep, breathe, calibrations, weights, measurements every single day of my life. And I think I probably dream it all the time. What I want to know is we at Carlisle, I would probably say we are very efficient. We try to be, because we are a pharmaceutical. So of course we don't want to kill anybody. So we try to calibrate often. We try to make sure our measurements are on point. However, when you're saying, so we have like a lot of different like scales, like the manufacturing plant will have a different scale, the lab will got a different scale, the guys in the barn will have a different scale. So we have to register all of our scales, or can we, so we calibrate. So we also do get people come in from overseas. So we do our own calibrations, and then every year we get the persons, we buy them from our external person to come in and to check our calibrations to make sure everything is okay. But if we don't do that, and say you were talking about training people, like how to show people how to measure using the beakers or the scales. So if we come to a training, say you have a training session, we come to your training session, you give us a certificate to say, well, okay, they were trained by BNSI. Then does that certify us as a qualified lab? And then we would, would y'all still come in and check us on a regular basis?
Okay, so I think I get where you're going. So,
yeah.
So a lab's credibility is built on several things, but all of it points to competence. So inside competence, you have the people. So in other words, the laboratory technicians actually performing the laboratory tests. And then you have to have assurance that your equipment. So the ISO 17025 will be pertinent to you. Sorry, forgive the acronyms. This is just the international standard from the International Organization for Standardization. And there is a standard specific to the competence of analytical laboratories. All right? We in Barbados have adopted that standard through BNSI as a national standard. So that's the first tick. We in Barbados, BNSI is the National Metrology Institute, according to the bill, and the national standards body. So if we come in and we do whatever training, whatever calibrations are done, once we can show the traceability of measurement, and again, forgive me, I'm diving a little bit deep just for this young lady. Traceability means that the lovely weights that Damien would take from us, we need to show on the calibration certificate that they're traceable to the international standards within a certain uncertainty. And that's all that's required for you, Make sure that your equipment is within thing, make sure that your lab staff is trained. Now, when you're going to pharmaceuticals, there may be a requirement in the future for your laboratory to be accredited. Maybe. And that's something that you have to keep in your mind, because you don't just want to train and implement and have the equipment working well. You want to be able to hand and prove with some sort of documentation with anybody that asks, this is my accreditation. Which, for anyone internationally, it means you're doing all the right things at the right times, frequently, which gives them the confidence that, okay, anything coming out of your business is going to be trustworthy. It's going to be accurate. It's going to be something that we can work with. Yeah? But please, please, please engage with us some more so that we can help you as best you can. I love the discourse. I want to jump on to where we left. The labeling standard, before I go on. Labeling standard. What's a labeling standard? Everybody looks sleepy now. You're not as talky as before. Yes, but you all know that there's a standard for labeling. We talk about prepackaged labeling. How do you know what to put on the label? How do you know? You can't just look at another fella label and say, well, you can put what he put, because he might be, he might not be fulfilling all the requirements, right? Somebody else. Oh, I'm blocking. There is a labeling standard. And did you all know that in Barbados, the labeling standard that we have through BNSI is in keeping with the international labeling requirements? My vendors know this well, But what does that mean? That's fancy words. What do we mean? What do we mean by this? If I, according to the law, have to put a label on my prepackaged product, whether it's agricultural, food, whatever, pharmaceuticals, whatever, if it's prepackaged and I have to label it, I need to know what the requirements are. Yeah? What font size will they allow? You all know that some labels, you can't even see the thing. Did you all know that in the labeling standard, 1.6 millimeters, according to the lowercase o in the alphabet, is the smallest font size that is allowed? You all knew that? How you can know it unless you had the labeling standard? You get my point? So you need to have the tools and the exposure in order to comply with what is going on. What language do you have to have on a label in Barbados? English. We speak English here. Yes. And that's a good question. So in the audience, some boys say, even in imports? Yes. And we do see products. I right or wrong, I'm being honest. This is not one of those hide-up workshops. We talking, okay? You might see Chinese and a little Dutch and thing and some Egyptian, and then you're wondering, how much to take, what's the dosage, what's the quantity, how to mix it, how to prepare it. So by law, if you have a prepackaged product, whether it's that you're bringing it in or it's manufactured here, there's certain criteria that it has to meet. Font size, that's a big one. You heard Robert talk about expiration dates when it comes to food. Is that important or not? Critical. So if I write 02, 07, 06, what date is that? My food expiring 02, 07, 06. What date is that? What's 02, 07, 06? That's July or that's February. What are we working with? Some people write the month in the middle. Some people write thing too. So guess what? The standard say we can help you all with that dilemma, right? We will give a particular way in which you write the expiration date. If you're writing a year, it has to be 4 digits. So there's no ambiguity. When people see 2025, you know that's 2025 you're working with. Okay? You can either write May as M-A-Y or 05, that's fine, but the standard actually gives you the way in which you comply. So, is this standard going to be available for all people, vendors, retail, distributors? Yes. And you can get it right now even from the BNSI. If you're writing your little notes, I see people's hands going. It is the BNS 5 Part 2. BNS 5 Part 2. That is the labeling standard. Margaret is an expert with it. She has a copy laminated on her desk. She sees it almost every day. Because why? Her officers are enforcing the labeling standard. It is one of the mandatory requirements in our trading environment in Barbados. If you have a label, it has to satisfy certain criteria. English. Font size has to be legible. Expiration date, if it's food, Robert, has to be clear, you know? Now, I know Pine Hill is in the room. Net weight and so on, important. Not gross weight, net weight, you know? Should I go into this? Yes. So bear with me. Don't, you know, we ain't fighting, we ain't arguing, we're just trying to get an understanding. So, certain products, you extend the shelf life with certain activities. Now, I don't want to go too technical, but people in agriculture and food and things will understand that. When you pasteurize the product, and then you heat seal and thing, and you seal it, you keep the bacteria out, you keep air out, it would last longer on the shelf. Not so? Yes. When I open it, though, is there the same prolonged shelf life for my product? When I open something? No. So if I have a pasteurized product where if I keep it sealed in the container, it would be good till January 26, maybe. You know, you can get 6 months out of those, sometimes more. But from the time I open the fella, hello, I speaking to myself? How many days do I have with it in my fridge or what have you? Not 6 months. So do we have to look further into how we label expiration dates for pasteurized products after they're opened? Is that something that we could improve as a country and maybe have a discussion around? I think so. I think so, you know? Because, you know, my mother, and I think she's watching, her stomach is very sensitive. She gets something. So if she opens a pasteurized product, but it goes to the back of the fridge and she doesn't realize that he was back there hiding for a couple of days, maybe even a week, maybe even more, Then if it is pulled, but you look at the expiration date on the box and you realize that it's some far date, can you see how you can get challenges? I see in the heads nodding, right? So as a country, we got to be mindful of these things too, Robert, you know, going forward, so that we maintain the quality and we protect our consumers, all right? Okay, so let's go back to the presentation. Okay, while we take that question, yes. But please put the presentation up after the question.
Hi,
Yes.
good afternoon. I know you're talking about the labeling.
Yes.
And you know I'm a quality person. What I'm asking, persons who prepare produce from home, like pepper sauce and, sorry? Soaps and stuff, and they label, and they put, for example, let's say 100% turmeric for turmeric soap. Is there some type of system that tests to see if there are any extra? So the same thing happened with food. If they're preparing pepper and you know, there's some persons that say they have a secret ingredient.
Right.
So I want to make sure this secret ingredient isn't something that would give me an allergy.
Yes.
So is there a system in place to make sure that what they say is actually on the label is actually in the product?
Very, very good question. I don't know if you listen carefully. I will unravel the question for you. And again, we're having a discussion, so we can be open. Years ago, years and years ago, a gentleman came to me with a great product idea, you know, and he came, he showed me the product, he said that he would like to put this on the shelf, no label. I said, well, you have to look into labeling it so that people have good sight of what you have in it. He came back to me, so say that was a Monday, he came back to me the Thursday with a label, declaring how much percentage of this and percentage of that. I said, wow, you're fast, man. You know, where did you go to do the test to get back the results? He said, test? No, I just look at, I had another man with the same kind of thing. He had certain things on his label, so I said, well, that's what you're going to do. No, not out of being malicious or wicked, but just thinking, well, you know, isn't it the same thing? I said, absolutely not, sir. You have to test to verify. So the word that she really used was verify, that what you're putting on your label is inside there, because people could get hurt. Everybody's concerned about how much salt they're using these days, true or false or not, me included, you know, salt conscious. Now, a fella might think, well, I can market all of my juices because I can put 2% salt. You understand? Nobody ain't checking. I put in 2%, Robert. And people indeed might say, oh, this is a low salt thing. Wow. You need to have a mechanism, good, where you are verifying in country that this is accurate. So that too speaks to building capacity within our laboratories, having a mechanism and a framework by which people come and they get accurate tests done in Barbados. Already is happening, my dear friend Nathan. Raise your hand, Nathan. Maybe you'd like to stand. He was very quiet because he's the man. Nathan works at the Government Analytical Services. He's one of their best. I see everybody nodding. Oh, yeah, that's it, Nathan. I see the name on the results for true. And they do a lot of good work making sure that water, food, all kind of products, a lot of innovative products. You go there, he would guide you through, all right, you need these 5 tests. You're going for a nutritional fact sheet, Robert, on your product. And there's the support in the Government Analytical Services. And they, too, are spending some time with us because they are renovating through the Ministry of Agriculture their laboratories, quite a bit of millions invested, so that the capacity in country by this time, hopefully next year, should be tenfold. So there's a lot of investment going into laboratory services through our government and our ministries. BNSI, we now sit in the Ministry of Innovation, and we too have significantly improved our capability. So we get in there. We get in there. But as a culture, though, and a people, we have to appreciate and understand the importance of going there. You could build the best labs in the world, but if people are not utilizing them, you know, if people don't see the importance of not just copying off of what your competitor has and calling it a label, then we can encounter some problems. you know? Everybody comfortable? All right, online, we comfortable? All right, so let's go on to, so we talked about the first two. I would like to mention on the third one, now, measuring on request, we touched on that one. That's some fine print though. Y'all could see that? That's difficult. Can it be enlarged, team? Is that 1.6 millimeters according to the lowercase o, or that? No? So I failed my, my font size thing. All right. So all sales of goods by weight or volume or length or count must be by net quantity. How many in the room have never measured on a digital scale? I'm talking about themselves. Just raise your hand if you've never put anything on a digital scale to measure it. Now, I don't know if you go to the doctor or if you have a household scale at home to measure your body weight. That would be counted as one as well, you know. But on the table, there is a digital scale there. Now, if I want to measure the weight of this mouse, good? So the scale is on. The scale is on, and I am zeroing the scale. If I want to measure the weight of this mouse, and this is a container that I'm going to sell the mouse in. All right. So I put the container, I put a little fella in there. Oh dear, the audience telling me that I start wrong. And I look at the weight and I see 662.63 grams. Can you see that, Mr. Mike, Mr. Cameraman? All right. And I get a nice, that's a rat. Somebody said animals, that's a rat. That's a tongue rat. That's a tongue rat. So if I get a nice printout here on the side now and I get my label and I slap that on the mouse to say it weighs 662 grams, would I be right or wrong? Dead wrong. But it's a weight that the scale is showing. What weight is that? Well, is it incorrect? There's a technical classification for this weight. Let the people online hear you. Gross weight. Gross weight. Meaning not just the mouse, but all the packaging and the container and thing. All right? How many of you, and again, we going real, are in the habit, and I like it, Barbados nowadays, you can go and purchase food by weight, where you could get and you could choose your corn and choose your chicken and choose a little salad, your cooked veg. If you put a lot of gravy on it and it get heavy, you're paying about $50 for lunch, Robert. But there are some practices who sell food by weight in Barbados, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's innovative, it's legal trade, it's good, it's nice, creative. Now, follow me. And I hope that some of them are maybe in the room or even listening online. We're going back to my scale. I zero my scale. There's a word called T-A-R-E on these digital scales. It's called tare. And it's just that you're bringing it back to zero. So right now, it is not recording the weight of anything, okay? I go to a food place, and this is my food container. Pretend it's my food container. Could it tell me, collect your container and take as much as you want, sir? And I go around and I put in my veg and my meat and my fish and my thing, and I pack my container, and I get to the cash register, and I do this. With the food inside. And they tell me that you have 662.3 grams of food, sir, and that's $45. They're doing the right thing? You all quiet? No, you ain't talking as much as before. Is that the right practice? What would be the right practice? What? Not the experts, not the experts. Sorry? Tear it how? Somebody please come and demonstrate to me what that should look like. Somebody, please. All of a sudden, you're all frightened. These people jumping on me all day. Come. This is a workshop. This is a working shop. Okay, your name and where you're from in case you get it wrong.
My name is Ruth Lynn.
Ruth Lynn, yes.
Ruth Lynn Small from the Barbados Bottling Company.
Let me see. Start from the top. Talk them through it, Ruth Lynn.
Okay.
Food container and put some food in it.
Okay, so this is the container that we're bringing. This must be first put on the scale and then tiered. Tiered.
Wait, don't tear. There was a comment. There was a comment.
You have to zero the scale first.
First, that's what she's doing, she's tearing. But let me get. I think she means level, you know. Do y'all know? And I can throw a little grenade in the room now for the experts, because they got a lot of experts here, right? They got a lot of experts. So listen, experts. If I have a scale on a table and the table lean, you remember what Damien told y'all at first? Because of gravity and you don't put it straight down, if I stand up on a scale like this, am I going to get accurate? If the table lean, am I going to get an accurate weight? So there's a little bubble. A little, you know, the guys in the construction thing will call it like a spirit level on the scale. That this type of scale at least, that you need to adjust the legs. Y'all know this part? Adjust the legs till the bubble is in the center of the ring, which means that the scale level. And now you're ready to measure. So go ahead, my dear. Assume that we did that. Aye.
So our scale is level, the bubble is in the center.
Yes.
And we're going to now, you get the container with the food, place it in the center, not on the side, in the center, and then we're going to tear.
Aye, so we get mixed views. So she's placing in center and she tears. She's okay?
No, he's.
I was hearing some voice saying she might get
tear.
Oh, she can get it. Well, let's see.
No, if you have something on the scale already and you tear, you're going to get wrong measurement. A tear has to be before. Yeah, a tear. As far as I know, I use a scale.
Yeah. To tear it before. Wonderful feedback. So we get in there now, you know. So in other words, this telling me that nobody is sleeping. So watch now. The first time people sleeping with, another meeting. We can wrap up. The first time that we did the scale, if I wanted the weight of this container, Alistair is right. You tear it, and then you put this fella on. When you tear it, it says that I am ready to weigh whatever you put on me. I am at 0, ready to go. Good? But the thing is about it now, we only want the weight of the food. We don't want where the container to be priced in the food price, because that wouldn't be net weight. So we want the food alone. So she ain't doing bad. She going all right. Let me see her through to the end. So she tears it. Now, watch me. She tears it with the empty container. Imagine that there's a food container. If I was running a business of worth in the morning, first thing, I would get my people that doing the weighing of the thing, or even the cashiers, I should say, to take one container, put it on the scale, and press the 0. Because that container, more than likely, is the average of all the other containers. They weigh pretty much the same thing. There's a little bit of, check the word now, tolerance. Good? But it's allowed. So if I could get the weight of one container, Alistair, tear the scale. Anything that I put now, and I will hand over.
Okay. So we had a little variation here, maybe the wind. So I'm going to tear it again.
Yes. Professional.
So it's going to just about 0. And then I'm going to put my food in the container. And that will be the net weight or the food, the weight of the food.
Aye. So
and that would be what I would decide.
Give her a round of applause. So don't leave, don't leave. So this is now 70 as opposed to 662. The weight of the food is only 70 grams, 70. Good? And you get that printed out at the, you get that stuck on the thing because you're paying for per kilogram. So say it was $10 a kilogram, you now have a $7 food here. Because this is point, 0.1 of a kilogram, $7 food. Good? And you're paying for the food. That's fair. Because you're not paying for the weighted container. People can be deceptive if you pay a gross weight and you get a heavier container. Suppose I had a metal container. Your food lunch going up to $55 if you do it wrong. Good? Because you're paying for the container, not the food. Y'all get the point? Is that needed in Barbados? Well, y'all get the point, but y'all don't think that we should implement this thing in Barbados? Don't you think that practice, would that bring down the cost of living a little bit, you think? I think so. I think so. Is that unfair to the retailers and the food vendors? No. They price what they want to price for the net weight of the food. So anybody getting disadvantaged and unfair with this metrology bill? No. Can I have a Slido question, please? Sarafina, maybe you could just do it quickly. I don't know. If online and in the room, I can ask you to do your phones, because we're wrapping up now. We're going past 12. Think that the Metrology Act, if it is bringing these kind of practices to bear, is a useful piece of legislation that is badly needed. So that's what we're asking as a question, because we want to get a fair understanding as if the public wants this thing, if the business side wants this thing or not. And this is some of the detail. So as the next question is being asked, Sarafina would just quickly put up a nice question. Is the fairness of weighing food a practice that is needed in Barbados? All right? And that will help us to understand if people get this or not. Now, we'll go into the question that is in this corner. Yes?
Right, so I guess my question, I am sticking with, the example of the food, because this then comes down to, you were talking about business practices. So yeah, we're talking about, net versus gross when we weighing food. Suppose my man that pricing the food say, well, right, and the price for the food is, let me say, you're saying $7 a kg, let me say, for example. Suppose he said, well, the container, I charge you $7 a kg too, but realistically, the container, let me say, is only 2 grams. So as a result, he's saying his per unit price is the same across the board for the food and the container. How you get around that? Because technically, then the gross will be equal to the net.
Okay, so if I weave through your question, and you can let me know if I am understanding it right. A producer, a manufacturer may say to this simple example, but the material, the container thing cost me money. So I would like to recoup some of my money in the cost of what's going on. Short answer, incorporate it into your pricing structure. Yeah, and as Mr. Paul has alluded, that's what's happening. So in other words, so the fairness is that you get a fair quantity and you agree to pay, say it was $10 a kilogram, you agree to pay that so that you see what the kilogram price is and you pay that and it's fair. So the thing is to make it fair trade and not the deception of paying for gross, whereas you want to pay for net. But you can incorporate, which is happening, your costing structure for your material. I give you an example. Better than this one. Who eats chicken? Do fish. My fish advocate say don't do chicken, do fish. My chicken, a lot of people say this is chicken, Let me do both. Let me start with chicken. Chicken. chicken parts. So I'm talking about, you know, thighs. So thighs and legs that you go in a supermarket and you see, expensive, I know. I got a family of 4. It's hard, right? Now watch. I am in the meat room. Good? And I am told to cut these parts, package the chicken, and price it out. No problem. That's my job. I do it every day. So I go through with my precision cuts, and I cut the parts. I get, you all know the yellow trays? Yeah. I get a yellow tray. Good? And I put the yellow tray on the table. And I put some absorbent material. You know what's absorbent material? Because the chicken, as it's frozen and thing, you get a little bit of seepage. Good? And I put some absorbent material in the tray. And then I put my parts. And then I get, the cell wrap. And I start wrapping. I go around 2, 3, 4, the front, but you got to do it properly so the juice don't come out. So come back down again. Good? Good? Sorry, online. I moved the mic. And then I take that whole fella and put it on the scale. Have I done it right? You're paying for all kind of wrapping and thing as net, And if I wrap it twice, you got $25 for my cuts. If I put in an extra couple of wrap, you might have 32. And I see some small chickens. Sorry, Paul, I know that you're in the room and you're a fair man. But I don't know if the birds get smaller. I don't know. It's difficult. It's rough. But practices which are fair practices is all that we're asking. Yes?
Okay. Suppose I just put the chicken in a bag, plastic bag, and I freeze it. And then when you come to buy it as a consumer, I then weigh it. Is that a fair practice?
Is that a fair practice? Robert, you're into vegetables. If you're selling wholesale vegetables to the supermarket, that you tell them that you got some spinach, right? That you can bring them. You can bring a nice quantity of spinach in your truck. But you pick the spinach at midday when they ain't got no dew and the spinach dry and thing. Is it going to be the same way as if you pick the spinach at 5 o'clock in the morning when the dew heavy?
No.
No. And then if I walk around in the back of my truck and I go in and I sell them by weight, and I give them a little sprinkle with my water, talking about I making it fresh. I know to buy it by weight, Paul, so I make it fresh. And I sprinkle and I go on in and I ain't satisfied that they're fresh enough, so I go on again. Well, you understand? I gone up about 40% in my weight. Yes or no? Let me talk. Huh? The weight gone up though. Let me get the not necessarilies. I like this. Let me get the not necessarilies.
But all this is done is to keep moisture and keep it fresh. That's
keep it fresh.
But
so
doesn't mean a significant amount of it.
All right, but can you decide what's significant? Look,
because
wait, let him speak. Listen to the comment.
Because the moisture is continually coming out of the vegetable.
Yes.
That? Continually.
Yes.
It's a continuous process.
Yes.
But it's just that, for instance, if you're out in the oven, right, you must keep it
fresh.
You have to give it moisture.
All right.
To maintain it fresh.
And there was a young lady who is joining you in that comment. And no, I take the comments because we have to talk about this. I can let Alistair go last. We get in there, remember? I like the fact that y'all staying back at this workshop that has ended, But no, this is important. Listen, before you speak, I live 2 minutes from Emerald City. So if I freshen up my spinach, and I can do it, man, and I freshen up and thing, and I get there and we'll see all this moisture, it will weigh more. Yeah. If I come in at a different delivery time of the day and it's hot and thing, it will lay a lot less. So you're right. However, what I am saying, I'm not saying don't freshen up your vegetables, I do not want to purchase, if I am purchasing stuff, sir, I don't want purchasing the dry up vegetables when you get by me and it look dry and bad and thing. No, Emerald City might turn me away if I don't freshen up. All I'm saying is, are we certain if we are purchasing by weight what we are purchasing? Now the frozen thing is a very good one because frozen meat and thawed meat is two different weights. You go ahead.
So what I was gonna say was to the frozen meat
Uh-huh.
is that if you're selling fresh chicken versus frozen chicken, it's two different products. So it depends on what you're actually selling. That's the example I actually gave. So if you're selling fresh meat, you can freeze it and then bring it to me. But if you're selling frozen, that's what is being sold. So that was my point.
The chillers in the supermarkets, you know, they're not frozen though, they're chilled.
They're chill.
And that's okay, right?
Yeah.
All right. So we're talking about it. We're talking about it. So they had one more. So do we have the Slido question? All right. So we'll take one more from Alistair then. Go ahead.
I just wanted to comment. You know, we spoke about tolerance, it was?
Tolerance. Mm-hmm.
Right. So in every aspect, there should be some degree
of tolerance.
Agreed.
All right. Damien has a thing.
I don't have. I was being asked. So what you were saying, Brenna?
Right, so our conversation we had coming up to our training, we were discussing this, what is being discussed here now, fresh versus frozen, and the comparison in prices. Because, for instance, if you're packaging fresh and then freeze, if there's a difference in weight and pricing and that kind of thing.
Well, there's definitely an aspect of it in terms of scale. So when I say scale, I don't mean the device, but scale in terms of quantity. If you have a significant number of fish coming off of a boat, for instance, and you've packed that tuna or that red fish or red snapper, I've seen it in the market. You are selling the customer fish that has ice in it, and fresh fish that is not slightly frozen or frozen is going to weigh less than fish that has ice compacted on the inside. It's just a fact. It may not resonate with one fish, but I can guarantee you if you do it with 1,000 that coming off a boat, when you measure on the large scale in the market, it makes a hell of a difference in terms of money recouped.
So how we would do it then, like, how we would do it then, like, let's say I go and I buy, for argument's sake, 50 pounds of marlin or so from a processor, right? Yeah. And then I weigh out in 2-pound parcels, and then I freeze it. Well, because again, I am, you know, I'm packaging to sell, not one time.
When you get down to that granular size in terms of individual packaging, like I said, it will not resonate the same way because we've already cut it up. Any water content would have been dispersed by that time. But when you do it at scale and quantity, it will make a difference. If you are selling, this is more like a trade and an export perspective I'm speaking about. At Barnufo's level with the individual fishers, it may not present itself in that manner that we are discussing, but it will still be correct practice of trade to sell a consumer a commodity in flesh or in grain that is close to the marked amount on the package. Follow? So I don't expect when I go into the market and my red snapper go on the scale that I could see ice in the belly and ice in the mouth, because I know that it is a bit heavier than what I will get home with. Because when I get home, sometimes my truck has got beer, fishy water in the back of the tray. And if I measure that, that is an extra quarter of a pound. I just being honest, I left the market last week with a whole tuna. Cost me $800 and something. It got cut up. And I lost about 35 pounds of that tuna in just the head. So you're already down, because they got to cut up my tuna now and they got to sell it. That was a fresh tuna, fresh off the boat. You understand? So if you enter post sale, then it's going to be a loss for you. I understand it because they do it.
So let's do this. You guys have been so awesome, an audience, that no one is looking antsy, and we've gone over 35 minutes. And I see hands folded and people now getting into the discussions. However, I do have to be mindful of the time that we did say we will have this. What I'm hearing is that we are really prepared to get familiar with this SI unit, international unit. We are prepared to have the best practices that we can have with measuring, especially with weights. There's one that we're very, very familiar with. We are asking for calibration services from the entities in country to help us as a country to be competitive with our industries and our laboratories so that we can show that we're calibrated. What I will ask you to do is, if you pay attention to the screen, there is a QR code which has a question that we will ask of you before you leave, and online you will get to do this exercise as well. It's anonymous, so don't feel that, Ryan, you can go and peep and see that I said this. No, it is anonymous. You can give your honest response. Please take your phones now and scan the QR code with the, go into photos and scan the code. And we are asking for your feedback from the question that comes up. So just take a photo of the code. We will not know who responds what, but I'm asking you please just to be honest so we have an indication as to your feeling. Don't put no, you said? Don't put nope. Oh. So yes, Y-E-S, or no, N-O. If you put any, N-O-P-E is the response. Well, how y'all get nope? All right, so Y-E-S or N-O-P-E. I ain't so sure what this nope thing, but I might be too old for this thing, huh? Okay, so as the answers drop in, we will see what the majority consensus is. You all have it? You have the photo? I see some people are finished. Just go in photos and you scan the code, and who's complete, who's finished? Okay, we just wait a couple of seconds so all of you can do it. Would you like to show the mass responses as they come in, please? So that's a no or nope? Would it be useful for everyone to see the responses? All right, so if you can tell us up front, what do you see as responses, please? So the majority of participants said yes. So the number is climbing, 20, 21, and it's climbing as people are getting it done. You did have a yes, certainly, and there were 5 in some other category there just now. 5 no's. And 1 maybe so. Perhaps they logged on late. Right? But no, I appreciate it. I am glad that we can make such a technical piece of legislation engaging and fun as well. I don't think I bored, or the team here bored any of you, but before we leave, I must thank the panelists, Margaret and Damien. Thank you. A round of applause for their input. And the absolute support that I had from the BNSI team there at the back, Alicia. And they haven't worked on this just from now. People are days and weeks in preparation for simple events like this. It takes a lot. So Alicia and Serafina and Tamika, thank you. The support team with the videographers, James, we thank you and your team. Dacia, of course, did a lot because it is her team. That's the admin team. We would like to thank Dacia more. She's standing here next to me. And you get in trouble when you start to call names, right? So thank you for the entire team and the hotel for making this available. Please look out for the follow-up sessions, because we've done well, you know, but we are going to now go into the particular industries and really zoom in and hit home. Barvin, we may have an opportunity to come and speak with your guys, you know, directly, and with their specific needs as well, to change out. Similarly, the laboratories here. So we're going to spend the next few weeks really having this quality program rolled out across the country, because we believe that this piece of legislation is critical and is needed, okay? So thank you for your attendance, and I hope that you have a wonderful weekend and get home safely.